conservative legislature who did what was right, even though it was a difficult task to undertake. At the same time, I told people when I would knock on their doors, I love what's going on in Wisconsin. I would love to be a part of that. But I can't stand what is happening in this country. We have an opportunity. We have an opportunity on April 5th to give Wisconsin to Senator Ted Cruz and take this country back. So without further ado, I invite all of you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll turn it over to Representative Thiesfeld for a prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everybody. Is it still morning? There's a clock way in the back there. Well, what a great crowd. I really appreciate all of you coming out here today to support the next President of the United States. What's his name? Well, I have the distinct honor today of opening the event in prayer. So if you're willing, I ask you to please bow your head. And I'm going to put my glasses on so I can actually read it. Our dearest Heavenly Father, your loving hand of great blessing has been a guiding hand for our nation. It is with great humility that we thank you today for all of these blessings. We ask that you continue to look with favor upon the United States of America and give us all, especially our leaders, a servant's heart that seeks to glorify you above all in our thoughts, our words, and our actions. Make our goal, especially this Holy Week, be to always be a reflection of you that brings honor to you and to the sacrifice of your Son, Jesus Christ, on the cross. We ask all of this in your name, our Savior and our Redeemer. Amen. Thank you very much. Now, it just occurs to me, I didn't tell you who I am. I am Jeremy Thiesfeld. And if you see my name in writing and wonder, how do you pronounce that name? Just think of seatbelt. My wife teaches little kids, and that's how she helps the kids remember how to pronounce her name. So Jeremy Thiesfeld, and I'm in the State Assembly. I represent the Fond du Lac area. Where are all my Fond du Lac people here? I know some of them are there. Thanks for coming out. And if you don't know where Fond du Lac is, just south of here for about 20 miles. Great conservative area, and I've been in the legislature since 2011. So I went through some pretty exciting times with a true principled conservative by the name of Scott Walker. And now we're trying to get another true principled conservative by the name of Ted Cruz into the presidency to take this nation back. Now, speaking of principled conservatives, I also have the honor of introducing another principled conservative up to the stage. So I'd like to invite the United States Congressman from this area, Representative Glenn Grothman.
I get the best job today. Later on, you're gonna on this stage, you're gonna have maybe the greatest president we've ever had up here. But right now, I get to introduce a wonderful woman who is so accomplished in her own right. Degree in Claremont College, master's degree from Harvard, did tremendously well in the business world herself, but has such a great background. You know, you read about this woman, her parents were missionaries. His dentist missionaries, and her dad was a dentist, her mom was a dental hygienist, took her to Africa with them. Her grandfather was a missionary in the Belgian Congo. Such a well-balanced and interesting person, and somebody I want to see, and I think will be, if we get there, be the greatest first lady this country's ever had. So now, I get the tremendous honor of introducing the wonderful Heidi Cruz.
Thank you so much, Congressman. introduction like that. We have an incredible leadership team here in Wisconsin, and the reason we put so much focus on your state is because we care about you, we care about Wisconsin businesses, and you are going to have an incredibly important voice in this election on April 5. And I'm really excited to have the chance to meet all of you today. You know, these are the companies in America that drive our economy. Small businesses, family-owned businesses, private companies that are growing and thriving. And you know, there's a lot of people who don't question who makes the cones on their roads or at the events. We interact as consumers with products every day that are critical to our economy. And we need a government that respects your industriousness, your skill, your growth. And that's exactly what Ted will do. I just want to tell you 3 things about Ted before he comes. You know, I always love to talk about Ted before he gets here because I can say whatever I want about my wonderful husband. But my objective with this is to tell you why I fell in love with Ted 16 years ago. Because I want you to all go vote for him, and not just you voting for him, but I want you to call 10 or 20 friends and tell them why this person is so incredibly extraordinary and why Ted has a unique skill set to lead our country at this time when our religious liberty is at stake, when our constitutional rights are at stake, when our very growth of our economy and our safety are in the balance. There's 3 things that I learned about Ted very, very quickly when I first met him. You know, I grew up in California, don't hold that against me, in a very small rural town. This was Reagan country in the 70s. My parents were Christian missionaries. They practiced what they preached, very much like the size of the town of Oshkosh here. We had a great community, great families, great schools, and our parents spent a lot of time with us teaching us. My brother and I had a small bread baking business growing up for about 12 years. We learned the value of hard work. And when I met Ted, I knew that I had met more than my match. This was a person who was incredibly principled, who knew what he believed. He was a person of great courage who was going to speak out for those beliefs no matter who was in the room, no matter if people disagreed with him. And I've also learned through our many years together, this is the most thoughtful person that I've ever met. Ted was born to a father who came here from Cuba as a freedom fighter. Rafael Cruz values elections. He looks forward to them, he cries for them, he works for them, he bleeds for them, because he knows it's what protects you from the difference of a government of tyranny who's going to control our lives versus our individual freedom. Rafael Cruz came here with $100 and is sewed into his underwear and washed dishes for 50 cents an hour. He learned English, he built a small business, he's now a pastor north of Dallas. Ted's mom was the first in her family to ever go to college. Her father didn't think that women should be educated, and this lady, who is now over 80 years old, Eleanor Dara, graduated in 1956 with a degree in math and was one of the first computer programmers in this country. She is unflappable. She has a backbone of steel. She's wise, patient, and very, very smart. And whenever we need to get Ted to do something that no one can convince him to do, I call Mimi. And I tell 27 million Texans that their U.S. Senator still listens to his mom. Ted was raised at the dining room table with the Bible and the Constitution. By 8th grade, he'd memorized every single word in the Constitution. And he spent the last 20 years defending your values of religious liberty, freedom of speech, the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms, your privacy, and the sovereignty of this country, and the 10th Amendment of giving power back to you, families, communities, and states. This is a person who actually knows and has a proven record of winning on the things that he's talking about and knows how to lead this country from day one. The second thing about Ted that he's done for Texas is he's had incredible courage. There's a reason that this Congress, who's not working for you, doesn't like Ted, because he is working for you. He's done exactly what he promised he would do to 27 million Texans. And Texas voted for him a few weeks ago with a 17-point margin. The people that know him best know that he went there very, very short time ago and has been turning that system around and is not going to stand for this do-nothing government that we have. And thirdly, Ted's the most thoughtful person I know. This is a man who every single day calls me, sings to me in the middle of the day to tell me that he loves me, makes it home for every single birthday party, tucks our girls in bed. His favorite thing to do is to play on the floor with Caroline, to play bingo with her, or to read them bedtime stories. This is a person who, right before that big South Carolina debate over a month ago, 8 p.m. debate, 7:04 p.m., the hotel room door burst open. They'd been preparing for the debate that afternoon. I thought it must be time for us to help or do something, and it was simply Ted walking in with a big bouquet of roses and chocolates, because as you remember, the next day was Valentine's, and before he went on that debate stage, he wanted to make sure that his wife knew how well taken care of she is. Ted is incredibly brilliant. He's articulate. He has courage, but he always puts his family and his faith first. And he has time to care about those he loves most, because he has an incredible command of the issues. He's not studying every night people's talking points to try to figure out what to say. It's who he is. It's what he's been doing. It's time that we elect a genuine, true, consistent conservative, and not someone who's just changing their positions for an election. So with that introduction, I want to introduce to you my best friend, my partner, and someone that I really believe in, and I was his very first fan, and I know him better than anyone else, Ted Cruz.
God bless the great state of Wisconsin. Let me say to Jeremy and Jesse and Glenn, thank you for your strong, principled leadership. Thank you for standing up and fighting every day for the men and women of Wisconsin. Thank you for fighting for freedom. And to Heidi, isn't she going to make an amazing First Lady? You know, in the last few days, Donald Trump has taken to attacking Heidi. Look, I got to say, that's well said. I'll let him speak for himself, but I'll tell you, I think Heidi is the most beautiful, brilliant, amazing, fantastic, loving mom, incredible wife, and she is my best friend in the whole world, and I love you with all of my heart. And to the Seibold family, thank you so much for your hospitality. Thank you for welcoming us here. Thank you for your leadership, providing jobs. We're here at the largest manufacturer of road cones in the United States of America. And you know, that's kind of fitting because Washington, D.C. is a car wreck. We need to put cones around all of Washington, D.C.
us here, we're here because our country's in crisis. Because we're bankrupting our kids and grandkids. Because our constitutional rights are under assault, and because America has receded from leadership in war. And yet I am here this morning with a word of hope and encouragement. People are waking up all across Wisconsin and all across this country. This next election is going to come down to 3 issues: jobs, freedom, and security. Let's talk about jobs. You know, it's real easy to talk about making America great again. You can even paint that on a baseball cap. But the real question is, do you understand the principles and values that made America great in the first place? The heart of our economy is not Washington, D.C. The heart of our economy is small businesses like this one all over the United States of America. You want to kill the economy, do what we've done the last 7 years, hammer the living daylights out of small businesses. You want to see the economy take off, lift the boot of the federal government off the back of the necks of small businesses. If I am elected president, we will repeal every word of Obamacare. It's the biggest job killer in America, and we're going to pass common sense health care reform that makes health insurance personal and portable and affordable and keeps government from getting in between us and our doctors. And we're going to pass a simple flat tax so that every American can fill out our taxes on a postcard. And when we do that, we should abolish the IRS. We're going to rein in the EPA and the federal regulators that are killing small businesses all over this country. And we're going to stop amnesty and secure the borders and end sanctuary cities and end welfare benefits for those here illegally. And when we do all of that, let me tell you what we're going to see. We're going to see millions and millions of new high-paying jobs, manufacturing jobs, like these jobs coming back to America, coming back from China, coming back from Mexico. We're going to see wages going up for Americans all across Wisconsin and all across this country. And we're going to see young people coming out of school with 2, 3, 4, 5 job offers. It'll be morning in America again. The second critical issue in this election is freedom. You know, just a few weeks ago, the passing of Justice Scalia really underscored the stakes of this election. It is not one but 2 branches of the federal government that hang in the balance all of our liberties: religious liberty, free speech, privacy, the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. Every one of them is hanging in the balance. Now, you know, a couple of debates ago, we got asked a question about religious liberty and the Supreme Court. And Donald Trump turned to me. He said, "Ted, I've known a lot more politicians than you have." Well, in that he is correct. Donald Trump has been supporting liberal Democratic politicians for 40 years. I have no experience with that. But Donald went on to say, "Ted, when it comes to the Supreme Court and religious liberty, you got to learn to compromise. You got to learn to cut deals with the Democrats and go along to get along." Well, let me be very, very clear to the men and women of Wisconsin. I will not compromise away your religious liberty. And I will not compromise away your Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. The third critical issue in this election is security. All of us were horrified at the terrorist attack this week in Brussels. And it wasn't an isolated attack. It wasn't a lone wolf. It was an act of global jihad being waged by radical Islamic terrorism. And for 7 years, we've had a president who abandons our friends and allies and who shows weakness and appeasement to our enemies. Now, again, 2 debates ago, Donald Trump explained if he were president, he would be neutral between Israel and the Palestinians. Well, let me be very, very clear. As president, I will not be neutral. America will stand unapologetically with the nation of Israel. And if you cannot tell the difference between our friends and our enemies, if you cannot tell the difference between Israel and Islamic terrorists who want to murder us, then that raises real questions about your fitness and judgment to be commander-in-chief. Over the last 7 years, we've seen our military weakened. We've seen our readiness undermined. We've seen morale of the troops plummeting. And you know, as a nation, we've seen this before. We've seen another left-wing Democratic president, Jimmy Carter, weaken and undermine the military. And then in January 1981, Ronald Reagan came into office. And what did Reagan do? He cut taxes, he lifted regulations, small businesses exploded. We saw millions of new high-paying jobs. It generated trillions in new federal revenue, and Reagan used those trillions to rebuild the military, which bankrupted the Soviet Union and won the Cold War. I intend to do the exact same thing with radical Islamic terrorism. We're going to repeal Obamacare, pass a flat tax, rein in the regulators, stop amnesty, and we'll see millions and millions of new high-paying jobs. When we're back here in a couple of years, this factory is going to be twice the size with new jobs coming in, higher wages being paid, and that money is going to generate trillions in new government revenue, and we will use that money to rebuild this military so it remains the mightiest fighting force on the face of the planet. And no longer will our military be governed by political correctness. If you are a jihadist, then hear my words. In January 2017, your day of reckoning is coming. Because we're coming after you, and we're not coming after you to sit down and negotiate. We're not coming after you to arrest you and read you your rights. If you are waging jihad and trying to murder Americans, we are coming to kill you. Wisconsin is a battleground. This election right now in Wisconsin is neck and neck. Donald Trump and I are effectively tied in the state of Wisconsin. And it is the men and women here, it is each and every one of you picking up the phone and calling your friends and your family and your loved ones and saying, this election matters. That's how we win. It took Jimmy Carter to give us Ronald Reagan. And I am convinced the most long-lasting legacy of Barack Obama is going to be a new generation of leaders in the Republican Party who stand and fight for freedom, who stand and fight for the Constitution, and who stand and fight for the Judeo-Christian values that built this great nation. And with that, I'm happy to answer or dodge any question you like. Yes, ma'am. Thank you very, very much. For those of y'all who couldn't hear, she very kindly said she and her coworker made calls all day volunteering. Thank you. It is your work, your passion, your love for this country that is going to turn this country around. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. So it's a great question. The question is what to do about Social Security and in particular how personal accounts work. Let me address the issue broadly, and I'll include within the answer the specific answer to your question. What we're doing with Social Security right now I think is profoundly irresponsible. We've got politicians in both parties who are kicking the can down the road and refusing to step up and lead. We need strong leadership to strengthen and preserve Social Security, and that's what I'll do as president. Now, how do we do it? 4 principles should govern Social Security reform. The first, for seniors, for those on Social Security or near retirement, there should be no changes whatsoever, nothing. We've made promises. People have ordered their financial affairs counting on those promises, and we need to honor our commitments to the letter. But for younger workers, look, I'm 45. It is hard to find someone my generation who thinks Social Security will be there for us. Now, that is a tremendous opportunity for reform. When you've got younger generations that understand that politicians are bankrupting Social Security, it gives us an opportunity to step up and fix it. For younger workers, we ought to follow 3 principles. Number 1, for younger workers, we should gradually raise the retirement age to recognize that people are living longer, to give younger workers the time to plan on it and to save accordingly. Number 2, for younger workers, we ought to change the rate of growth of Social Security benefits so that it matches inflation rather than exceeding inflation. Now, those 2 changes for younger workers bring Social Security into solvency. It fixes the problem. But the third change that is critical is for younger workers, we ought to be able to keep a portion of our tax payments in a personal account that we own, that we control, like a 401k, that we can give to our kids and grandkids. And to pay for it all, you've got to do all of those together. You can't just do the personal accounts without the remainder of the reforms, but we know how to fix this. What's missing is the political leadership, the courage, because anytime you step up and try to do something, you get demagogued. I think the American people are ready for leadership, and I intend to provide that leadership.
And why are they allowing Trump to define whether there's a debate or not?
You know, it's a great question. The question is there going to be a debate, and why does Trump get to do it? Listen, Trump is scared. It ain't complicated. Trump didn't mind the early debates. When you have 10 people on stage, and it's a bunch of bickering school children, and when you've got 30 seconds to give an answer, anyone can give a 30-second answer. You can read 3 talking points in 30 seconds and you're done. But Donald has a real problem. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He has utterly no idea. You know, one of the earlier exchanges, as the field has gotten smaller, Donald's done worse and worse and worse because he gets a little bit more time, and when he runs beyond 30 seconds, you can kind of see his eyes open up a little bit. He's like, I don't know anymore on this. I mean, look, this is a man who, when he was asked, what would you do on health care, he kept saying, well, the lines around the states, the lines around the states. It's like, what are you talking about? I don't know. They told me to say the lines around the states. You know, when you talk about jobs, he's very good at saying jobs have gone overseas. He's right. And then you ask, all right, Donald, how are you going to fix it? No idea. It's just going to be great. It's just going to be great. I'm going to wave a magic wand and it's going to be great. Well, I'm sorry, Donald, we don't live in Wonderland. You know, if your car is broken down Do you want to bring a guy over to stand in the driveway and yell and scream and curse at your car? Or do you actually want someone to lift the hood and fix the darn thing? You know, Donald on the economy, his idea is put a 45% tariff on all imported goods. Now, a tariff is a tax. So he's saying to everyone here, he's going to put a 45% tax on you. When you go to the store, when you're buying diapers, when you're buying clothes for your kids, when you buy your next car, take the price and increase it by 45%. That's disastrous. Look, people are struggling already. You want to jack up the cost of living by 45%. And not only that, the immediate response to that is all of our trading partners will put reciprocal tariffs on the other end, so then we stop selling abroad too. Last time we did that was called Smoot-Hawley. It helped contribute to the Great Depression. And there's a much better solution. My flat tax plan, which we've laid out in real detail something Donald doesn't do. Real detail lets every American fill out their taxes on a postcard. If you go to the website, tedcruz.org, you can see the real postcard. Typical family of four, first $36,000 you earn, you pay nothing. No income tax, no payroll tax, no nothing. Above that, every dollar above that you earn, you pay a simple, flat 10% tax. It's fair and even. No longer are billionaires paying less than each of us. And on the business side, let me talk about the business side for a minute. The business side, we abolish the corporate income tax. We abolish the payroll tax. We abolish the Obamacare taxes, and we abolish the death tax. And we replace all of those with a simple 16% business flat tax that's fair and uniform, applies to everyone. One of the things it means, a small business like this, if you invest in new equipment, you immediately expense that. If you put in new machinery to build road cones, immediately you expense that. That's a powerful catalyst for new jobs and expanding business. But critically, all exports. If you're exporting road cones abroad, they're 100% tax-free. And all imports coming into America pay the 16% business flat tax. So it's flat and fair. It doesn't jack up prices, but it lets Americans compete on a level playing field. And when we compete on a level playing field, we win. All right, two more. Yes, sir.
With regards to the Gulf Coast Cooperation Council, what would you do in order to strengthen our ties with that alliance, in order to break the Shia triangle that Iran is currently engaging in between Iraq and Syria? Because this will be complicated if we try to go on a ground war against ISIS, which is what's going to be needed in order to take these guys out.
Thank you for that question. Look, right now we have a president who is engaged, he is so bound up by political correctness that he will not name the enemy we're fighting, and he will not fight it effectively. You know, after every one of these terror attacks, whether Paris or San Bernardino, are no doubt coming on Brussels, the president does a national TV conference where he refuses to say the words radical Islamic terrorism.
The traitor!
But instead, he lectures us on Islamophobia. Well, enough is enough.
Right?
Here's what we're going to do with ISIS. Starting in January 2017, as Commander-in-Chief, I will make clear that our objective, it's not to weaken them, it's not to degrade them, it is to utterly and completely destroy them. We will do that through overwhelming air power, through carpet bombing them into oblivion. We will do that through arming the Kurds on the ground, who are boots on the ground, who are fighting ISIS right now. And we will also do it to the extent it is needed to have special forces or U.S. troops. No longer will we send them in with rules of engagement that tie their arms behind their back and make it impossible for them to win. If we send American fighting forces into combat, if we have to do so, we should use overwhelming force, kill the enemy, and then get the heck out. Okay, last question. It's a great question. The question was, what can we do to help kids with autism? Well, thank you for asking that question. What's your name? Sierra, thank you very much for asking that question. You know, I think we need to do a number of things. Number one, we give thanks to the families, to the moms and dads and grandmothers and grandfathers that do such a wonderful job raising kids with autism and with special needs and helping those kids be loved and supported and grow. But beyond that, we need to be expanding medical research to deal with challenges. And in particular, right now, if you have a new drug, if you've got a new medical device that you're trying to get approved, it can take many, many years to get that through Washington. Washington, the FDA, it can cost over $1 billion to have a single new medical treatment approved. That slows everything down. You know, there are lots of people who if you have a disease, if you have a challenge, there are treatments that are available in Europe. But you can't get them here because the bureaucrats make them illegal. I think that's wrong. I think it's immoral. And I've introduced legislation to make it much, much easier to accelerate the approval of new drugs, new medical research, new treatment to help cure diseases, to help care for people who are struggling, and for people with autism, new treatments to help them succeed and achieve a full and incredible life. And that is powerful. So thank you, Sierra, for asking that question, and thank you for being here. And let me say to everyone, thank you for standing up today. Thank you for your passion. Looking around, this is the strength of the campaign. It isn't Washington. Washington despises us. It is the men and women across Wisconsin and across this country. It is the beautiful young lady there holding up a sign saying, sharing our anniversary with you today, 18 years, happy anniversary. That's the power of the grassroots. That's the power of each of us standing together. And we've got an election coming up. And not very long. Wisconsin, the entire country, is looking to this state. Wisconsin has a national platform, a national megaphone. And so I ask each and every one of you from now to Election Day to devote your time and energy to picking up the phone and calling your friends and families and loved ones and getting as many people as possible to show up and turn out in the polls, because if we stand together, we're going to win the Republican nomination and beat Donald Trump. And we are going to win the general election and beat Hillary Clinton. And we are going to turn this country around and bring jobs back to America. Thank you, and God